So today is we have chosen to uh, tackle this uh, topic of hyparxis, which John Bennett had articulated in a variety of ways, and it's a not exactly the simplest concept. I think, at least speaking for myself, having wrestled with it for many years.
This is
And
really fair.
so I did ask Tony, which I'm going to ask him again, this question, which is in is hyparxis relevant in practical terms to us in our own lives, and in particular in your own life, Tony? Do you see direct relevance and usefulness of this idea, and or is it, a fairly elaborate intellectual construct that's really quite remote for most people to really get close to? And So I'd like to kind of get your take on it. I know you've been exposed to it for many, many years, so I'm very interested in how you see hyparxis after all these years.
Well, I was thinking this morning about it, and first of all, to say if you say you ask me tomorrow the same question, I'll probably come up with a different answer because it's not something which is in knowing; it's in understanding. And I apologize for starting off with what may seem a very dense conceptual task of understanding the difference between knowledge and understanding. But understanding is connection with what we can do, and doing is another mystery. And so it is not something which can be defined. It's like, uh, you but still, most people, I mean, these generalities I'm going to use here, most people are used to having definitions, and it's a legacy. I also remember there was a key English philosopher abroad who did radio talks, and he was renowned for saying in arguments with people, "Define your terms, sir." And so, but the thing about defining your terms is rubbish. With Socrates, who never started with the definition, but went round and round and round. And hypoxis is like that. It's not just a thing. You see, everybody, if you've got a word, most people, and me included, tend to think there's a thing which corresponds to the word. And you could sort of point to it, say, well, what's that thing? Is it that thing or that thing? And I say, no, it's like this ensemble. And so the material of what's involved in hypoxis is multivarious. It really is a complex kaleidoscope. And so it's like in science, it's the step comes, the insight comes when you see things which appear to be diverse or different or divided or different things or separated from each other. You begin to see them as one kind of phenomena, and there's picking up this phenomenon. It's like well, the only thing I cite from my background in science is the term energy, which I always point out to people was not in the English language until the beginning of the 19th century. Because there it was putting together this remarkable fusion, putting together, the phenomenon of heat and fires and furnaces and all the rest, and machines, doing that. One was heat and one was work, and they put it together and say, there is a thing, energy. And it was a marvelous thing. So I think Bennett, in doing that hypoxis thing, was doing a similar thing, putting things together which are not being noticed. Now, what is this thing? It is, first of all, it's it's how to say it. It's addressing something which is almost there all the time, uh, but not noticed. And so, one of the things involved for me practically in this is, first of all, I'm going to do something, and another little, and you can see me here dodging the issue. One little thing about the this thing about theory and practice, which I think most people fundamentally don't understand. They get it all cockeyed. Uh, you know, the relationship between theory and practice is very intimate. It's actually an example of hypoxis to get these two together, because they often, um, well, to use rough words, are squabbling in us, or arguing, or picking fault in each other, and so on. Now, the there is, for me, it is a strong issue because I see people who say, "Oh, let's rely on experience," but I often point out all what people call experience is itself theory laden. It's not pure at all in any way, but people assume it is. It's something, if I got a feeling, this is more pure than a thought. It's not, it's just a feeling, but it's a good thing and so on. But one thing about thought, which is that it goes beyond our experience. That's the point of thought, to go beyond your experience. Why? Because it opens to what is at the moment the unknown, something outside the boundary. And this is, I always think about a theme of meditation in this regard. Say, we got people talk about meditation as a spiritual practice, but, great scientists I know, like Dirac, who was a Bristolian like I was, practiced meditation because he was trying to solve the problem about the motion of electrons according to relativity in quantum mechanics. You might think, oh, this is awful materialistic science and he's not spiritual. But he sat by himself in a room for 3 years meditating on this thing. And what he came up with, the idea there must be antimatter. And it was 10 years later that he discovered antimatter. So this is something concrete in it. It's not going into a dream state, but actually is, I think, even Bhante, the great person, the Cambodian monk we knew, was to say about his meditation. And in his meditation, you must dig and not just float, but dig like a miner into the depths of the meditation itself and so on. So there's a whole issue there I won't go into. But now, what is it for me? It's to stick with the unexplained, is to see the gap. Now that's a very weak kind of statement, isn't it? What does that mean? Any suffering? But it's to, well, for me, the practice is around being constantly trying to check myself for illusion, and because there is all these the power of these assumptions we all have. This collapsing of thought is disastrous. You see, well, this thing about Trump, he's just depending on people not thinking. And what is it like then to go the other way? And like the particular thing which might come to at the end, which I've always relished about Gurdjieff. And here I'm not talking about what I practice because I'm just talking about what somebody said, so forgive me. And that where he said, you may want to be a Christian, but are you able to be a Christian? And so people, they want to do things, they want to be better. And somebody was talking earlier about hope, hope for things and all the rest of it. We're not able to do things. Where does this ableness come from? And that's the constant question. Where does this ableness to me to come, to act differently to what I have done? I was give an example in my personal relationships. Maybe I'm still subject to losing my temper and so on. And it's a constant hammer in me, which I keep going about, look, you're you're failing again at that, you're failing again at that, you're failing again at that, you're failing again at that. It's just very simple. And very simple things in life which people substitute their hope for, their expectation to improve in the future for actually doing anything. And this is what most people do. They just waffle on about spiritual aims and objectives and, being compassionate to all beings on the earth or crap like that. And instead of just actually, say, looking after their cat or, as Gurdjieff said, loving the chickens or something. My guy got a son who actually loves chickens. He's bought some chickens, he looks after them, and he's making a good start learning about love. But you see, this is sort of the lack of perspective is this. So it might seem I'm only here is I'm theoretical, but it's when you begin to start on this way, for me, and I've tried to write about it to share with others what I can, you begin to see so many regions where what really you see what is really works uh, in life, and it's not quite what you expect. And this is the that that ingredient, that tincture, that philosopher's stone, or all this highfalutin stuff people talk about. It's, what is really working? What is it? Have I, constantly, have I ever done anything in my life? Why am I doing what I'm doing? And this for me, it's a constant 24-hour thing when it's a way of confronting or living in the gap uh, between things rather than in things, in the what one doesn't know, what one doesn't have, what one cannot do, and all the rest of it. What a feeble response I'm making to you. But it's so the it's because for me, this dwelling in ideals and hopes is a disaster. Um, it's not that the ideals are wrong or anything, but it's to be in the hot seat. It's used to say in Coombe Springs in Mr. Bennett, it's like being ground between the upper and lower millstones of existence. And you get this picture being ground between these two impossible worlds which are grinding against each other, but getting into that grinding. And that's where the work is, that's where the flesh and blood is, and that's what the else is. So far I just waffled about it. I do apologize, but it's this getting to the point, and I'll hopefully end near one particular topic in this because it's about the present moment. I see people go on and on about the present moment, and I think a very limited sense. Oh, the now, all reality is just now, and you go, hooray, hooray, hooray. But what is this? See, I was, and this, first of all, it's just words. I'll say, what binds the moment into now is hyparxis, and it is like a binding energy. So without this hyparxis, there would be no now, no moment, because we confuse this mixture of the timeless and time in a way which gives a kind of cloud, which feels like this nowness and nowness and nowness, but it's has no capacity because you can't do anything. And one of the things I noticed about myself, about these moments I could call waking up and so on, is that they leave me in this different state, but I didn't know what to do in this different state. So this has become my course and say, find out what is it to do anything? What is it to change anything? And I just go on investigating this as best I can. My results are puerile, but that's when you say, what is hypoxis for me? It is there as like a red flag. I don't know what the right metaphor is. Or something with saying, look, the important thing is being missed. Uh, and I'll give you a little story about this, which is maybe not helpful, but I like the story. It's from 19th century blacksmiths in this whole theme where they have an apprenticeship scheme and the apprentice has to find out how to quench steel. And there's whole mythology produced about how you have to prepare the liquid in which the steel is to be quenched. And they go into all sorts of fantasies about this, which is distraction, like a conjurer distracts your attention onto this. Because the whole point in this is simply the steel has to be plunged into the liquid at the right temperature. And you find this out by looking at the color of this thing. And according to its color, you know the right temperature. So all this stuff about the liquid is completely irrelevant. So it's a bit like that. What is the critical thing which makes things work? And in sense, in general, I have no answers. And you see me bumbling away here, but it's that to say what what makes what makes things a real moment is something which is usually missed. And enter with my usual, I have prejudices, and one of them is against consciousness. And you think it is ridiculous being against consciousness. But I get totally fed up with it, if all spiritual people talking about consciousness as if it's some kind of great thing. because I was influenced by Bennett, and he used to say towards the end of his life, consciousness is just like ghosts, it's just nothing. Uh, it's uh, it's not, and the key is more in will, which is in doing. So what is this doing? What is it to do? And that's the whole bunt of the Goji. What is it to do anything? I don't have a formula for it. I can't. But it's every time coming off against it and not putting aside for me all the illusions of what I can or cannot do, because I'm full of them still, like anybody else. We're all of us going here. We think we're searching for consciousness, the rest of it. We carry on believing we've got it. You know, we can make decisions, we can do things. We all believe in this. But cracking through to that is not to become absolutely desperate, with this problem with Trump and so on. It's to look at what you can do. And this word can is addresses something vital. It's different from I wish. It's different from I am. It's I can. And funny how Goethe picked on this word, not English not being his natural language, but I can, and this haunts me. So here I am, a victim of theories, if you like, and where this engages or touches, binds with what's going on in me as an organism, because most of my experience is based on what's going on in my body, my organism, and all the rest of it. Where does that cut? So I just pray to actually do something simple. I still have this aim, to write 2 decent sentences before I die. Why? To do something. But it's doing. And people like Goethe had this, understood this well, because he talked always in terms of action, not in terms of thought. What is it to act? Um, so forgive me. As an Englishman, culturally, I'm trained to apologize all the time. And so I do apologize for this, but that's the best I can do. And if I say you ask me tomorrow, I'll come up with some other story. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Um, so what we're going to do now is break everybody up into breakout rooms to chat about it, Hyparxis. Some of you may have wrestled with this and have some thoughts. Some of you may have no clue and may pick up some things from what Tony just mentioned. And so we're going to break out for 15 minutes and we'll break into threes. And then 15 minutes, you'll automatically come back to the general meeting, and then we'll allow for some comments and discussion back at the group level. So I'll just attempt to do this here.
Good luck.
Yes. Okay. Here we go. And oh, just 1 second here. Well, thanks everybody for sharing. Tony, we're going to move to the union of opposites, kind of part to this hyparxis conversation. We have a video of the whirling dervishes. Do you want to say a few words, Tony?
I'll just introduce it a bit,
Okay.
just to throw in a concept. And it's, it's to take, there's something you can look at, we'll be seeing it in Hyparxis in a twofold way and in a threefold way and so on. The twofold way is interesting, first of all, this union of opposite. But one thing is to take is this kind of, well, I have to admit, it's kind of mental discipline about triadic thinking. And as you take this example, you see, you start from situation of standing still as one sort of state, then, and then you get the thing, and then moving forward was another thing. And you think, what could combine these two? Standing still and moving forward. And I just pause for a bit. You might get it. For me, it was an obvious sort of thing, but surprising. And that is you spin. And the idea of the physicality of spinning Because what spinning is beautiful is like it's a picture re-entering into yourself all the time. If you're the spinner, like the whirling dervish, you rotate and you keep on turning into yourself. So it's a wonderful metaphor and image, and it's also very physical. And it's very strange. We have this abstract word spin in quantum mechanics, which Pauli added in the 50s, and which changed quantum mechanics altogether. It's a mysterious thing because it's not like a spinning object, but it's got the same word in it, and so on. And now I go on to the dervishes. It was the first special meaning for me because when I was with Mr. Bennett, I even was given my own skirt and fez and so on. And you know, the skirts have little red weights in the hem of the skirt, so when you spin, they can gradually go up and spin into a plane around you. And so I know that with some thing. But when you see this, it's a complex ceremony from the Sama, even done by Rumi. Uh, we just pay our attention on this spinning, and it used to be described as reflecting the rotation of the planets because the whole solar system is a world of spins. And so see if you can absorb the metaphor into your own presence as we go along. Thank you, Peter.
Hey, you bear with me for a moment. I'm going to uh, share the material here, and it's about 7 minutes. And you could chat to me if you're having any troubles.
I mean, on the chat thing here.
Yeah, on the chat thing. Yeah.
No sound yet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. Give me a second here. Sorry. I may have, I did. Okay.
All right. Now, there's a comment on this that uh, Mr. Bennett took this theme of spinning in Hyparxis very concretely, so to speak, and he made some of the most, call it almost outlandish statements about Christ in that respect when he spoke about Christ ascending into heaven by spinning in another dimension and this sort of thing, which can be very arcane or strange. But as my associate in the earlier conversation, Christopher, was saying, that it's making it concrete is a feature of hypoxis. It's not to make it more dreamlike or ethereal, but make it, you can imagine it sort of more physical than physical. And it's, so I say, not to get out of the body, but more deeply into a body which is deeply inside the body we appear to have. But this sense of a union of heaven and earth, which again I owe to my friend Christoph, is is quite central in this. It's to do with a realm of the meeting of opposites, and one of them I'll come to in a moment. So that's a great general thing. It would appear to be just purely conceptual, but it's very intense. That is the contrast between fact and value. In volume 2 of the dramatic universe, Mr. Bennett says that so these two come as complementarities, as in accord, in that sense of making a complementarity and not just a conflict or anything like that, is he ascribes to Hyparxis is something which, so to speak, holds us, or hold them, or holds us, and where it is in this, or even talk about the ideas themselves holding themselves together. It's all of these possibilities, so that they sort of can come to meet and be together. It means that something can really happen, because without the two sides, nothing can happen at all. Nothing can change. Nothing can develop. I think in the bits of feedback we had, there was some mention of this union of, or not union, but coming together of heaven and earth, which is sometimes expressed in terms of, say, the Chinese triad is heaven, man, and earth, and putting man as between heaven and earth. That's their system of the triad, not like Goethe's. But it's this primal sense of they're already there together. And one other expression of this, which was paid attention to, was these two actions in the universe, which for him, which he inherited from Gurdjieff, it's a very powerful thing, very general action thing, which is one of involution and evolution. And he actually, Mr. Smith says that in the total universal sense, which isn't simply what we know as the physical universe, these are kept in balance, so to speak, hyparchically. Big propositions, this, but you can imagine that this makes a kind of, how to call it, uh, perpetual, everlasting, uh, cosmical reality, which is the underpinning of everything. Because there is now, the idea that in physics, of course, people have gradually gone for the Big Bang, and now other people are searching for what came before the Big Bang, and some people are looking for a multiverse with loads of Big Bangs and all the rest of it. But this sense of a kind of harmonious background of these two things, and it partly explains why we got this seemingly ludicrous thing which Gurdjieff said, that moons are evolving into planets and planets into suns and so on, which when I was a student reading this, I thought this is a load of codswallop. If ever I heard it, I believe in the thermodynamics, but which is, of course, just the evolutionary one. But they're saying that has to be this regeneration, and certain Christian theologians knew this, like Scotus Erigena. But if you get, I think if maybe more useful to look at these two ones. The one of fact and value is so extraordinary, because it's like it represents the most extreme opposites or pair of opposites that there is. You know, isn't this? Bennett would go on to say, well, the world of values doesn't exist as such. Uh, it's in non-existence, which doesn't mean it's unreal, but it's in non-existence. In fact, it's all that's absolutely in existence. So how can these two ever meet each other? And if they do begin to meet each other, then a universe is born, or something is born out of it. But in oneself, to hold them in balance in oneself, that is to be true to value, whichever, which again, quoting Bennett, said is values that move the will in us, another mysterious element in his teaching and so on. And then facts where we have to be realistic and true to the facts. But how can we actually true to the facts and also true to the values at the same time? And to do that at the same time can be, in certain circumstances, excruciating. Because it's has that element in it of it, like it's up to us, it's up to me. Yeah. There isn't looking for it in the universe, so to speak, already done by somebody, by some higher power or teacher or anything, but just it's up to me. This is what it is to be human, to take in that role and accept both on an equal footing. Now, the other kind of union of opposites takes us into time. And it always strikes me as being very, very extraordinary, but rather hard to explain in terms which just don't seem, well, that's an abstract intellectual theory and blah, blah, blah. Uh, but if one can get into it a certain way oneself, and one can feel it in a personal way, it helps. And that is that between eternity and time, uh, which is first presented and as mirror opposites of each other. I was like, but it's also a little bit like, not also, but like the dark and the light, the yin and the yang, perhaps all these opposites we play about with in the different systems and worlds and so on. But it's like in eternity, nothing happens. In time, everything happens. Uh, in eternity, nothing happens, but everything is. In time, everything happens and nothing is. Because isness is to do with eternity and the permanent and the enduring and that kind of thing. And it's the potential, what might be. And there's be reading a bit from T.S. Eliot later on, and at this time, what might have been in this abstraction, remaining only a possibility in a world of speculation. What might have been and what has been point to an end which is always present. But that mirroring, not mirroring, but getting them that face to face of eternity and time, where it's a kind of, again, apologies for this conceptual language. I can't, that's my best I can do. But it's what I say we face, all of us face in our lives, and to bear it. And by using the word bearing, I'm reminding myself of Madame Ouspensky and her very stalwart and very straightforward, womanly kind of to the point statement about being, because being can become a very, like Heidegger and so on, and Parmenides, and a very grand philosophical floating away thing and so on. But she said, no, being is what you can bear. There's so much to the point. And it's what can you bear? The bear is this contradiction in oneself, and it's a contradiction in existence, in being, you see, in it. How can you bear to be both an idealist and a realist, a materialist and a spiritualist? And it's all these contradictions, which I think most of you really well instinctively realize are not, to be annihilating each other and so on. But it's the point of having them as they bring something to a head, a crux. And of course, the word crux is related to the word cross. And so this is literally, in a sense, if you forgive me this turn of phrase, is nailing oneself to the cross, uh, which is allowing these two elements of our experience to confront each other, challenge each other in some way like this, that they do not yield to the other, so that, the idealist who perhaps can say only lives in eternity is argues with the realist who only deals with things in time. And you see this all around the world. And I think most of you here will realize it's all completely nonsense. Every element must entail its opposite. And that must entail its opposite is the hyparxis. But to be able to bear them together is difficult. And it is even a practical thing in this system of innovation, which is Russian, called TRIZ. The whole core of the developmental thing is accepting, recognizing, or digging deeper to the deepest contradiction in what you want to do. Not by compromise. It's always avoiding compromise, or getting into this absolute confrontation that this thing is impossible. And then you can get an insight into what it is needed, what is really needed. So when it comes to time, of course, most of you will well know Mr. Bennett was the very first of all proponent of eternity, and everybody can say, yay, the fifth dimension, as he called it, was eternity. And this is extraordinary because in ordinary mathematical physics at that time, it was just a fifth dimension. The idea of associating with eternity or with anything which could correspond to human experience was not allowed. And so, and this is very important because Mr. Bennett was in this problem because he was in that realm of mathematical physics, relativity theory, and the Klein-Kaluza five-dimensional geometry and all that kind of stuff. But where these people dealing with it were treating it as mathematics, but for him it was experiential. And this is the thing, a thread which goes through things, and it might appeal to you. I always reflect here on the role of Goethe in this. And it's between two streams, and that's between those who treat these ideas, if you like, just as ideas, as concepts, something thought up in the mind, so to speak, and other people who actually see them as living entities. And Goethe was one who saw these ideas, or sorts of ideas, as the living entities, actually perceived it, and didn't have to think it, he saw it. And so this difference between thinking things and seeing things is incredible tension in our reality. So when it comes to time, also, Mr. Bennett did this action. He said, well, look, we know there's this life going on, time going on, and the philosopher John Locke used to call time a perpetual perishing. And in science, we get this law of second law of thermodynamics. Everything messes up in time, gets less and less interesting, dies, if you like. So what could stand against this? And he looked for the opposite and put his trust in it. And again, it can be experiential for him. He was found the experimental thing. And one was about, he lived through the First World War. And he knew that like 10, 20 million young men died. And so all their futures were supposed to have disappeared. And he could never believe that. He always thought that all that possible life of these young men would remain a reality, a potential. So, but this picture, I know, I sometimes believe it, sometimes I don't believe it. But consider it, this potential, all these possibilities continue to be real somewhere, somehow. And where are they to be put? He says he can't put them in space. He puts them in a second kind of time. And there are other people who talked about some second kind of time and other kinds of time. No, but usually it's very rare because most people don't think, well, time has only got one dimension to it, and they don't get out there. But what if it have this is also to do with time, but it's a strange thing, anti-time. And he said what might have been, what might be is real and not only the actual. Well, this is something I think each of us have to face in our own way and not accept these concepts, but find our own, or whatever it is, how they come to you. That's why, many of you have suffered loss of loved ones and all the rest of it. And you go on to question, where is their reality now? And one can get crude ideas of this, that somehow the eternity is the storehouse of these patterns, like um, Platonic ideal forms or something, which is a misunderstanding. There's something in which there is something preserved, uh, something conserved, like Vishnu, the god Vishnu uh, in the Hindu system, who is the preserver, and is a distinct character from Brahma, the creator, and Shiva, the destroyer creator. This element, which is which this is the attitude, the approach we see out of time. We forget, things die, um, and when we divide life into parts where it's evolving, growing, getting stronger, and then me, like an old man, getting weaker and it's getting weaker and weaker, facing death, and that's all it is. And it's youth in old age, and so they fancy. But no, is there something which really is in this other dimension, which physicists called the fifth dimension, and did some mathematics for it. But they didn't ever refer it to human experience as Bennett did. And when it comes to human experience, then we have to become responsible, or we have to suffer in a certain way. As you can see all the time, these two don't agree. Uh, Possibly they do, but we have to find out, make up our mind. But what was the in-between? There is a principle, I think, in the work that where we find in the world ideas which are like conflicts, polarities between each other with two terms, and you move to three terms. Sounds very abstract, doesn't it? Go from two to three, brother, and you've got it made. But it is. It's just it's phenomenology. It's everywhere. Everybody thinks in twos. Always. And so the people get hooked up on consciousness again and say, well, it's because that's the opposite of just behavior. You've got consciousness, which is a good advancement. But said that's not enough. We have to get them three. And the three goes between them. And because it brings in something remarkable, which is things like choice and decision and meaning. It accepts the eternal and the temporal on an equal footing. And how is that accepted? One way everybody realizes, I think, is in cyclicity. Things are going in cycles, which is a way of dealing with that phenomenology of the eternal and the temporal. It goes round and round and round in the cycle and repeats it by repetition. Is there another way? But one aspect of this, which is important, and I'll stop here, is this marvel of the present moment. You see, I referred to it just now, that it is to treat hypothesis as a kind of glue. It's rather like the gluon particle in particle physics. The gluon, I mean, it's lovely, you know, it's like to glue together things and so on. That you see, people think about this past, present, and future, and they start thinking along this line, and the line begins to dominate them. And they say, well, the now must be just an infinitesimal slice in this going on of time. So there's nothing. So if you've got the past, it's gone, the future's not yet, and the now is nothing. This is what you led to. But how can this have duration? And this famous French philosopher who dealt with this, called it la durée, and had this argument with Einstein about the now. Uh, he lost the argument in the public's ideas, but still the argument goes on. What is it? How can the now have a thickness, you see? And it can, because the thickness is made by hypoxis. And it enables us to imagine all these elements. And some of you like the diagram Bennett make of all these arrows coming from eternity and time and hypoxis and then blending together into it. That's from the outside. But what's at the heart of it is this well, another expression of it, just to jump off onto a side for a minute, ever get round to reading a marvelous book, Hamlet's Mill, about the mill and the grinding of the corn and these images from ancient things, and the Sampo in the Finnish Kalevala thing, this grinding now have turned into something which is just an action of grinding, a turning, a turning. And this is the sweat and the blood and all the rest of it. But let's look at simply hypoxis as the glue, which makes, like me talking to you, I have this sense of nowness, but nowness doesn't really have, there's a specious presence, which is less than a second, and there is a kind of experiential now, which is 2 or 3 seconds, and there's a long-term now, which is 20 seconds, and so on. All these different kinds of things established by psychological practice. But when you look at how wide your thing is, and that you can, as I'm feeling it now, can conceive of the sense of the range of this now. It's the now in which I have any reality. It's not, can't put it just as the skin, because it's how it's reaching into the distant past and the distant future, and inside me and outside me, and all of this, which is brought into this harmony inside of things which are the coalescence of past, present, and future in a dynamic dance. So think about this as the third dimension of time, as it's eliciting, and this is why, in a sense, it can't really appear much in basic science and so on, because it brings out what it brings out is this possibility of the individual will, and the famous formula of Gurdjieff in the word triamatikhamno, I put three together and do. And it's this I is brought into existence through hyparxis, and Bennett sometimes it calls it hyparxis, all kinds of marvelous properties, including being what he called the seventh or impossible dimension. Well, that's my waffle about it, ladies and gentlemen. So sorry about my poor show, because you must remember each time, well, I feel myself, each time I called upon to talk about these things, and I was called upon to do it, I've been doing it for about 60 years. Uh, I can't say I've got any better at it, but each time is just, this realization, each time is unique, but it's part of the same time. And that is the property of hypoxia. You would have felt it. The key meaningful moments in your life, they're all the same moment in some remarkable way. And Henry Bortoft, in his latest book, touched upon this in quite a very clear way. That it's the same moment, but it's not like it's ordinary kind of mechanical sameness. And he was full of it through biology, through organism, to organic thinking, and the Goethean science and all the rest of it. But we can feel it experimentally, or know it, or understand it. You understand it. As for me, every moment in my life, which has been a moment of understanding, is the same moment. But it's the same in hypoxis. It's the same will, if you like. But as my colleagues here, I was apologized to them, saying, me, I've trained in Bennett's writings and the rest of it, got this language and so, but this may be just a problem, just get in the way. I'm quite willing to persevere because in the way you have to, each of us has got to find our own language, our own cosmology. And Mr. Bennett came to that point in the preface, marvelous preface he wrote to his fourth volume of Dramatic Universe. I think is a very special piece of writing because you write prefaces after you finish the book. And he'd gone through a whole process in the Dramatic Universe over 50 years or something like that to get the thing done. And he come to and he saw that the way that every one of us, every will, it sort of creates the present moment. And we're not in some kind of shared Newtonian space and time at all. But there's some action then whereby it's possible that we can coalesce together in a moment, and maybe in a conversation, in sex, in love, whatever. It's possible for us to coalesce and these interventions, but each of us in our own way has our own cosmology, our own psychology, and it's unique. That's again one of the properties of hypoxis in time. It enables this uniqueness, what the scholastics called hypacity or suchness, to be there. It means that every tree is an individual tree, every frog is an individual frog, and each of us has this accentuated in the possibility of having what Goethe called real I. It's all, as my silly little joke I've reported in us early lads with Bennett said, "It ought to be due to Hyparxis." So I'll leave it there. Peter, what do we do next?
So, Tony, we've got the T.S. Eliot reading. We have Travis's exercise. I don't know which order or you want to do those in.
I don't know. What do you say, Peter?
I say we do Travis's exercise.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
All right,
Hooray for Travis. Thank you.
go ahead, Travis.
Are you there, darling?
Unmute.
She has no.
All right, there I am.
There she is. All right.
Oh,
Well,
thank God.
I'm sort of breathless with this, just the miracle of what we're swimming about in talking about. I mean, it's just, and I have all these wonderful notes I've written down about it, and anyway, I have an exercise to do.
Hooray!
And and it's interesting that that Tony showed the video of the dervish turning, because that's what it keeps coming back to me, is the remembering and the being in the moment and the intention and the will. I mean, it's this huge it's this huge project of it feels like a giant love affair that we're in the middle of. I mean, in life, it's life is, and what was the hadith of I was a hidden treasure and I long to be known. And here we
Oh,
are. Um, so I this exercise came to me many, many years ago through a friend, and I don't remember exactly how it was, but I have worked with it over the years, and I can't find her right now to ask about sources and all, but it's the journey of the hand to the heart. And um, in pondering it, we have the two things that come together. Our hands just are filled with the intelligence. What is Rumi poem that says the movement of your finger is not separate from your finger. And we go to sleep or we die and there's no movement in the hand. But then we wake up and our fingers fill with meanings. Our fingers are like the servant of our mind and our brain and our heart as well. And um, and then we have the heart. And before we do this exercise, I will say I found an extraordinary video that I would love to share with you all, but it has a very, very, very long address. And so rather than post it in the chat, I'll ask Daniel, I'll forward it to Daniel or Peter and have them send it to you. And it's about some uh, physiologists, doctors who have really been exploring the structure of the heart. And they've um, examined it by cutting it apart every which way from everything. And finally, someone discovered about unwrapping the heart, and and it and as they unwrap it, and I have to say this video is anatomical, using a cow heart. If you're a little bit touchy about watching things like that, I just give you a heads up. But it's a preserved cow heart, and he finds a way of unwinding it, and instead of slicing and dicing and figuring out the chambers, it unwinds in this beautiful, it becomes this long, one long muscle that unwinds. And to put it back together, it's like it whirls up around itself and builds these chambers that draw and push the circulation and the blood through the body. It's extraordinary. And so I send that to you just as a contemplation. With what we have here is we have the turning right here. Um, so let's just take the hands together, just to kind of just warm up the body and let go of the energy of sitting around listening. It's just taking the hands back and forth and um, getting a little, because the whole thing runs on the electromagnetic energy, and that's what we're not rubbing a balloon on our head and sticking it to the wall, but we're getting just a little energy worked up in the hand. And then let's just bend the wrists if you can a little bit. I'm going to hold my hands up here so you can see, just opening the wrists and point the fingers in and out. Just opening the energy in the arms, the two bones that are in the lower arm and the elbows. And just taking a deep breath in and out. And then you can turn the hands back to back. If your wrists don't go all the way, just as much as you can, drop the shoulders. And again, you can lace the fingers together and just take the hands in and out. Just getting the energy moving. And while we're doing that, just move your feet around a little bit. Lift your heels, get your get your legs a little bit active. Loosen the jaw. Let it be loose. Then you can clasp the hands together and turn one hand toward your face. So we turn it this way. And then the one that's toward your face goes over, 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 over. And curiously, this is a movement that I learned in Central Asian dance from the city of Bukhara. And the dancers will have big cuffs of little bells around their wrists. And the movement goes like this. And it's really a gesture of the turning of the heart and the loving. It's like, and it turns out to be a very good way to warm up the wrists and everything. Now I ask you one more. Just put your hands on your ears, and we're going to curl the head over and touch your elbows together. And then on the inhale, open your elbows and lift your sternum and your face to the sky, right through the ceiling. And then exhale, coming down and touching the elbows together and lifting up. Inhale and stretch up. And loosen your jaw. And one more time, exhale, curling forward. And then inhale, lifting up and coming to the center. So now, taking the right hand, I thought about playing some music with this, but I'm not going to. This will take about maybe 3-4 minutes or something to do properly. Could do it longer. Just take the hand out. You can't see my hand. Just take the hand far away from your body, and feel the hand out there with all of its intelligence and all the things that it does, and just let go of all those things that the hands do. And then just for a moment, be aware of the heart turning inside your cage of your ribs, and that it's sitting there. And our hand is going to make a journey to visit the heart. So just take a deep breath, let your head float up like a candle flame, and begin to slowly, very, very slowly bring the hand toward the heart. And it's slower than you think, because we're going to take, I'm looking at a clock, and we're going to take maybe 3.5 minutes. And take a deep breath and just ponder the hand. The thoughts come and go as the hand slowly moves toward the heart. And I'll tell you a few of my thoughts, and you just watch your own thoughts. I saw my hand when I've done this sometimes. It's like it's making its way across the river and over the mountains and through the forest, and it's journeying to the beloved. And I'm breathing while this is happening. And my blood is flowing through my body, turning through the heart. The vortex of my heart that has this beautiful field, electromagnetic field around it of love and life and being. And slowly, slowly, my hand makes its way across the desert. And across the oceans. And through the hours. And my heart is waiting. My heart gets word that my hand is coming. And my breath is deep and easy. awaiting the beloved. And I feel the air around my body and the light coming in through the windows. And my hand is still making the journey toward the beloved of the heart. I feel my feet on the floor. I feel my seat on the chair. I feel my shoulders supporting my arm. I feel my hand still moving. At my invitation to come toward the heart. And with each breath, it makes its way passing through the millennia of time, through space, to the place of the beloved. And my heart can see it now. And slowly, slowly, we have about half a minute left and we will be there. It's getting so close now. They can see each other.
Hmm.
And then take a few more breaths. And there, and there, and there. And the hand lands right outside the heart, on the rib cage. And we take a deep breath. And another. And one last long breath. And thank you.
You.
Thank you, Travis. So, Tony, if I could ask you a question. We've got the T.S. Eliot reading, and we have an exercise from you as well. Should I go to the T.S. Eliot, or would you like to change up the order at all? Or
No, let's go to a few words and I'll do the T.S. Eliot. Is this all rigged up, ready to go?
it's all rigged up, ready to go.
Okay, I'll just say a few words. We also to pause after Travis's exercise. so beautiful. What I'll be doing later will bear some relationship to this one. But I'll introduce this one. I was sometimes kind of embarrassed at some of these things, and I put in things which poetry and music and so on, which I like, which may be peculiar to me and my taste and so on. In the poem by T.S. Eliot, The Four Quartets, he wrote in 1948, I've been reading it aloud even just to myself and also recording it, for more than 60 years. I just love it, and I always feel it as an incredible exposition of the real nature of time. And it introduced here partly because I think in some way, like as Travis sometimes actually demonstrates, it's in the arts, in the way, or in this case in poetry and so on, that things can be better expressed than they can in a more formal way. And to emphasize to this sense of subjectivity of my selection here of this, it's related to, I think, all my times I've been by myself reciting this poem and then into tape recorder, and my dear colleagues here, Stephen Rhodes, he actually recorded for me in Microsoft Studios in Seattle, God knows how many years ago, my reading of the Four Quartets, and then later he added the music of Robert Fripp to it. It was a very, very meaningful thing, and also a real deep encounter between us, which has lasted over the years. And then a second occasion came when, through my friend, also Michael Whiten, member of our board here, enabled me to get to the place called Little Gidding, which is one of the places which Eliot talks of or references in his poem. It's the fourth of the quartets. Little Gidding is a small village near Cambridge. And it, for me, always remains a day. I went there with him through his good graces. Exceptional English summer's day, sunshine. But for me, it's like, absolutely sounds crazy like heaven. It's like one of the unique days in my life, which I owe to him gratefully. And I said, well, let's do some recordings of Eliot's poem, Little Gidding, and he'd filmed it for me and so on, of way, and here it is. So it has this exemplification of some of these things about Hyparxis, memory, the substantiality of now in different time frames, and all of that sort of thing. And it's I think it's better said through poetry than through mathematics, perhaps. So this is actually then, it's filmed in that small place called Little Gidding. And not all of the poem, just some of it. So I hope you can feel some of the feeling in it. Thank you, Peter.
Okay.
Midwinter spring is its own season, sempiternal though sodden towards sundown, suspended in time between pole and tropic. When the short day is brightest with frost and fire, the brief sun flames the ice on pond and ditches in a windless cold that is the heart's heat, reflecting in a watery mirror a glare that is blindness in the early afternoon, and glow more intense than blaze of branch or brazier stirs the dumb spirit. No wind but Pentecostal fire in the dark time of the year. Between melting and freezing the soul sap quivers. There is no earth smell or smell of living thing. This is the springtime, but not in time's covenant. Now the hedgerow is blanched for an hour with transitory blossom of snow, a bloom more sudden than that of summer, neither budding nor fading, not in the scheme of generation. Where is the summer? The unimaginable zero summer. If you came this way, taking the route you would be likely to take from the place you would be likely to come from. If you came this way in Maytime, you would find the hedges white again in May with voluptuary sweetness. It will be the same at the end of the journey if you came at night like a broken king, if you came by day not knowing what you came for. It will be the same when you leave the rough road and turn behind the pigsty to the dull facade and the tombstone. And what you thought you came for is only a shell, a husk of meaning, from which the purpose breaks only when it is fulfilled, if at all. Either you had no purpose, or the purpose is beyond the end you figured and is altered in fulfillment. There are other places which also are the world's end, some at the sea jaws, or over a dark lake, in a desert or a city. But this is the nearest in place and time, now and in England. If you came this way, taking any route, starting from anywhere, at any time or at any season, it would always be the same. You would have to put off sense and notion. You are not here to verify, instruct yourself, or inform curiosity, or carry report. You are here to kneel where prayer has been valid. And prayer is more than an order of words, the conscious occupation of the praying mind, or the sound of the voice praying. And what the dead had no speech for when living, they can tell you being dead. The communication of the dead is tongued with fire beyond the language of the living. Here, the intersection of the timeless moment is England and nowhere, never and always. Ash on an old man's sleeve is all the ash the burnt roses leave. Dust in the air suspended marks the place where a story ended. Dust embreathed was a house, the wall, the wainscot, and the mouse. The death of hope and despair. This is the death of air. There are flood and drought over the eyes and in the mouth, dead water and dead sand contending for the upper hand. The parched, eviscerate soil gapes at the vanity of toil, laughs without mirth. This is the death of earth. Water and fire succeed, the town, the pasture, and the weed. Water and fire deride the sacrifice that we denied. Water and fire shall rot the marred foundations we forgot of sanctuary and choir. This is the death of water and fire. The dove descending breaks the air with flame of incandescent terror, of which the tongues declare the one discharge from sin and error. The only hope, or else despair, lies in the choice of pyre or pyre, to be redeemed from fire by fire. Who then divides the torment? Love. Love is the unfamiliar name behind the hands that wove the intolerable shirt of flame which human power cannot remove. We only live, only suspire, consumed by either fire or fire. What we call the beginning is often the end. And to make an end is to make a beginning. The end is where we start from. And every phrase and sentence that is right, where every word is at home, taking its place to support the others. The word neither diffident nor ostentatious, an easy commerce of the old and the new. The common word exact without vulgarity, the formal word precise but not pedantic. The complete concert, dancing together. Every phrase and every sentence is an end and a beginning. Every poem an epitaph, and any action is a step to the block, to the fire, down the sea's throat, or to an illegible stone. And that is where we start. We die with the dying. See, they depart, and we go with them. We are born with the dead. See, they return and bring us with them. The moment of the rose and the moment of the yew tree are of equal duration. A people without history is not redeemed from time, for history is a pattern of timeless moments. So, while the light fails on a winter's afternoon in a secluded chapel, history is now, and England. With the drawing of this love and the voice of this calling, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Through the unknown remembered gate, when the last of earth left to discover is that which was the beginning, at the source of the longest river, the voice of the hidden waterfall, and the children in the apple tree, not known because not looked for, but heard, half heard, in the stillness between two waves of the sea. Quick now, here, now, always. A condition of complete simplicity, but costing not less than everything. And all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well, when the tongues of flame are enfolded into the crown knot of fire, and the fire and the rose are one.
Thank you, Peter.
Hey,
Oh, to our final stretch with its, what is it? It's past our time, isn't it?
it is by a minute.
By a minute. I know you can just I think well, perhaps we have already anticipated we might have part two or another go the next session at this, because also to give you chaps out there with so much really in you to say, to speak, and not let it be all me or most a lot of me. But we'll end with then, just for a closure, for taking about 5 or 6 minutes, with something which can be taken like an echo of what Travis started, but in a different spirit. Is to start with the music from the very last movement that Gurdjieff created. I think it was, if I got it right, 2 weeks before he died, which was the last in his series of movements called the 39, which was well, probably or essentially the last he composed towards the end of his life. And it's in a way, and it's obviously in a way a summary of everything which was put into his movements. Is the most simplest thing, but even though very simple, it's often performed in different ways by different people, because there's simple nuances in it and ways of doing it which are possible. And this is only one way. But I think what I'll do is not do this because we've had something with Travis in this. We'll just play the music through a couple of times, Peter, if you can do that. And we will show it's being performed by a pianist called Kremsky. He does it very well. But it's just, I think, would settle this. I just need to express my gratitude for your patience and kindness. And this is not just being polite. Your patience and kindness are extraordinary, because we are not here authorities. I think people know I've done so much of my life in connection with Bennett and the work and all of that, but part of my life was trying to get away from it all. And part of me still doesn't believe a word of it, but it's just that it's being part in a way of a family, a kinship, which has got nothing to do with what one believes in or doesn't believe in, or is or isn't, or anything like that, but something else is working. And I believe in this way of connection, which also is very deeply hyparchic between us. So just let us all be kind to each other in this period when we're faced with such insanity and terror adrift in the world. But rejoice. And well, there's no and. It's always and. There can always be an and. And I hope we can all join together and perhaps have another investigation and let other people speak and perform in this than today, because I think you would have got the taste. We can't do this particularly by definition, but at the same time we want to make use of the material of people like Bennett, but all other people, as Eliot or whoever you like, and who has touched this something, this chord, this sound, this whatever it is, this, as Christopher was telling to me, this metaphysical something which is behind it all, makes it all meaningful, this essence. And we can trust in it, and we don't have to label it in any fixed way. So God bless, peace with you. And so, Peter, could you play the music through twice, please? And then we can say bye-bye for now.
Okay.
Could you do it once more, please, Peter?
Sure.
Goodbye.